A lawsuit has been filed against NASCAR in the latest update of the charter negotiations with 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Let's break it all down. Hey everyone, it's Taylor Kitchen and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we do motorsports media your way, talking about NASCAR all the time. And we're talking about the major piece of news dropped this morning by Bob Pockrass, stating 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports are filing a federal antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. We're going to go through the who, what, when, where, whys of this lawsuit, starting off with the opening statement that says, quote, "The France family and NASCAR are monopolistic bullies, and bullies will continue to impose their will to hurt others until their targets stand up and refuse to be victims. That moment has now arrived." So though the why of the lawsuit is very clear, citing NASCAR's monopolistic tendencies, let's go deeper into that, as the lawsuit claims that the teams are making less revenue than they could be getting in a competitive market, saying that NASCAR owns a majority of the tracks, they dictate where these teams buy their parts, and NASCAR wants to control the IP rights of the teams. All of that said, there were several quotes released today from all parties involved, except NASCAR themselves. So I'm going to read them here. We're going to talk about them in a second. So in a joint statement from the team, they say, quote, "We share a passion for racing, the thrill of competition and winning. Off the racetrack, we share a belief that change is necessary for the sport we love. Together, we brought this antitrust case so that racing can thrive and become a more competitive and fair sport in ways that will benefit teams, drivers, sponsors, and most importantly, fans." Michael Jordan even said, "I love the sport of racing and the passion of our fans, but the way NASCAR is run today is unfair to teams, drivers, sponsors, and fans. Today's action shows I'm willing to fight for a competitive market where everyone wins." So how did we even get to this point where 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports are filing this federal antitrust case against NASCAR? Well, we talked about this a few weeks ago. As the lawsuit claims, the teams were met with a take it or leave it offer where teams felt they were coerced or forced into signing a last-minute deal before the playoffs started at Atlanta. And according to Kelly Crandall, these teams didn't even get more than 24 hours to look at these new contracts that NASCAR sent their way, saying that if they're not signed, there is a fear that the charters could be taken from their possession. Ultimately, the attorney for the teams, which we'll get to in a second, said that 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports didn't want this to come to an antitrust lawsuit. However, after years of negotiating that ultimately led to an ultimatum, that felt they had no choice. This brings us into the part of the video where we talk about the help the teams have and how this puts the teams at risk. Obviously, with all but two teams citing this new charter negotiation, we don't know what this means moving forward if they happen to win the case. But we also don't know what this means for the future of Front Row Motorsports and 23XI Racing, as obviously filing a lawsuit against the sanctioning body is going to fracture the relationship already. But what does that mean if they win and or lose this lawsuit? We don't know how that looks right now. We do know that their attorney will request a preliminary injection that will allow them to compete for the 2025 season, according to the AP, and that attorney who will work on behalf of these teams is none other than Jeffrey Kessler. He spoke to the media today, and there are two quotes that stuck out to me that I want to read to you all here. He said, quote, "There has never been a case that I have found that is as egregiously anti-competitive as this one. Here we have a sport where one family has basically used its power to create an absolute monopoly for the benefit of that family, as opposed to being for the benefit of the teams, the drivers, the sponsors, the broadcasters, the fans." He also ended by saying, quote, "We think at the end of the day, NASCAR is going to have to change because that's what the legal system is going to require." And by the way, Jeffrey Kessler is not a nobody. He's not a no-name. He has covered several major cases in sports, such as winning cases that include the creation of free agency for the NBA, covering cases that has to do with NIL deals in colleges. Most notably, one of my favorite cases of his is the equal pay case for the U.S. women's soccer team. He definitely knows this stuff and knows how to win major cases in the world of sports. So beyond that concern for NASCAR, what else does NASCAR have to look out for? Why are they at risk? Well, NASCAR is a privately owned sporting league, and nobody really knows how the revenue, how the money is actually split up. So Kessler has very little to go off of with this case, as he's banking on public knowledge. But we do have some insight from co-owner at 23XI, Curtis Polk, on how the revenue seems to be split. He estimates that the teams get about 13% of the overall revenue, so that's roughly $100 million total to go to the drivers in a sport that generates $3 billion in revenue. Of course, that's an estimate, and we don't know the fine details, but why this case puts NASCAR at risk is it's going to force them to open all of their books and fully display how the revenue has been broken down. With news as big as this, there's obviously going to be a lot of buzz on social media, a lot of people really rooting for the teams to do well in this case, a lot of people saying, NASCAR's been around for 76 years at this point, they've been doing business a certain way, these teams need to suck it up and deal with it. And I was surprised to hear that was kind of the case for a veteran NASCAR member, Larry McReynolds. Larry McReynolds spoke today on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio about this whole situation, and to summarize what he said to you all from this quote on your screen, he's all for change, but he sees a team that's been here not even 4 years, like 23XI Racing, wanting to change the way NASCAR's done business successfully in his eyes for 76 years. It rubs him the wrong way. Adding on to this, he talked about how if the other teams have already signed this deal to do what's best for the sport, then I guess kind of why are we even going this route? And though I respect the ability to have the opinion with somebody as tenured as he has been in NASCAR, I could not disagree more with it, especially knowing though the teams did sign the deal as cited in the lawsuit itself, the teams felt that they were coerced or forced to sign this. And according to the AP, the team owners cited in the lawsuit prefer that their identities be kept hidden in fear of retribution from the sanctioning body themselves. So there's at least the meat and potatoes of this antitrust lawsuit, what was said by all parties involved, some online opinions from industry members, as well as what the lawsuit hopes to do, also talking about what this means for the future. And right now, it's uncharted territory. We don't know what this means for the future of those teams. Obviously, they're pursuing legal action, but in the larger scope of things, what will this ultimately do for their relationship with NASCAR? Will they be welcomed back in? Will they continue to compete? How will this work out? There's so many unknowns with this, but obviously we're going to keep you updated right here on TobyChristieCom. But that's it. The news about 23XI Racing, Front Row Motorsports filing an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR for all of the charter things. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. And of course, for more NASCAR news, go to TobyChristie.com. And to learn more about us here at Above the Yellow Line, go to AboveTheYellowLine.com.